Hey guys, welcome to Make It Yourself. For today's video, we're going to replace the front brake line on the 95 Fatboy. So in a previous video, you saw we swapped out the handlebars that were on the Fatboy. We went from 16-inch ape hangers down to 12-inch apes, and I gotta say, still love it, right? So now I've got to address kind of the cable length. So the cables that were purchased, honestly, I think they were made probably for like 18-inch apes. They're very long. So I've got to replace all my cables. So what we're going to do is we're going to start and we're going to do this front brake cable. And you can't see it because it's kind of tucked in behind the cell or headlight cover there. But this cable was so long that somebody had actually kind of wrapped it up in there to shorten it, to hide it, and it was actually causing the brake to not work properly. So I had straightened that out when I had the 16-inch apes on there, and there was a lot of slack. So you can only imagine, and I'll show you what that cable looks like compared to the replacement cable that we got. And then if you also look at the color difference. So this is the brake line, and these throttle cables are relatively new. You could see the difference in the steel braiding. I mean, this is nice and shiny. This is dull. If I expose the area that was hidden down here, you can see it's actually shinier, kind of more closer to the throttle cables, right? So we've got to address that issue. And in order to do that, we're going to have to disconnect the line from the master cylinder and then also the caliper. Now, they're full of fluid, so we're going to have to drain that fluid out so we don't have stuff spilling all over the place. And what's important to note, at least on this bike, and I don't know if this applies to all Harleys, but I know there are quite a few, they utilize .5, and that's a silicone brake fluid. So this is different than your standard brake fluid. Standard brake fluid is the nasty stuff that if it gets on your paint, it'll bubble your paint up. This actually won't do that. It's purple in color, and you cannot mix it with anything else. So if it says it right here, actually not compatible with .3 or 4. So like if you have .3 or 4 in your bike, you can add either or, doesn't matter. They're interchangeable, but .5 is not. If you do, it'll clump up. It's kind of like looking at oil and vinegar. When you add those together, like on a saucer plate or whatever to dip your bread in, it kind of looks like that. It bubbles up. They just don't mix. So you never want to put those things together. So make sure you understand what fluid is in your bike before you add any additional fluid or you replace that fluid. If you want to go .5, which I don't know, just on the fact that it doesn't mess up your paint, I recommend. It's not as available as all the other dots, .3 and 4, but you can get it. I think I got this on Amazon or might have found it at one of the locals. But yeah, pretty simple stuff, easy to take care of. So we're going to go ahead and drain that fluid out, and then we'll undo the line. This should be a pretty simple job. We'll have to just pull it through that little hole on the top of the triple tree, and then weave in the new one, put it all back together and refill, and we'll have to bleed the brake. All right, guys, so I lied to you. I didn't drain the fluid out of the caliper. I'm going to address that when I do the bleeding of the brakes. So instead what I did is I just went ahead and disconnected the line. I'm letting it hang over that bucket with the rag in it, or paper shop towel in it. And as soon as I let the air off of the top part of the line, just because of gravity, right, it's gonna drain off into that. So we'll let that happen. But I just wanted to kind of show you this process, and even though this stuff won't ruin your paint, I recommend you still put towels down and stuff, because it is still something. It's silicone based, right? But it'll still make a mess. So why deal with having a mess if you don't have to? So good to have a rag around. What I'm going to do is, I've got a little cup here just in case. I've already loosened up this bolt, and make sure you don't lose any of your hardware. So on these lines, there's a washer on both sides of the line, or the head of the line. So make sure you don't lose it. Now I believe because there's a valve that is in there, the reason this thing ain't just like dripping out is because the valve is not open, right? So we may be able to save ourselves a little bit of time as far as refilling the reservoirs, but there's going to still be air in the line because it'll be a new line that we put in. So we still have to push all that fluid through to empty the air in the line. So it's still the same bleeding process. It's just kind of this piece of it here that we're probably saving ourselves on. So like I said, it's, you got a washer on this side, the head side, and then there's a washer with the little rubber seal on that side, and that's where your fluid goes through when you're kind of pumping it through or whatever, right? So just make sure you don't lose that stuff. You also want to check them, make sure they're not torn or anything like that. Realistically, you probably want to replace all those little pieces. I'm a bad boy. I'm not going to do it. So, you can hate me later or something. Anyhow, this is done. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull this out, and we'll do a side-by-side comparison of the new line to this line, and then we'll weave that new line in. All right, so here's the side-by-side on the two lines. Of course, the color is probably the number one thing that you'll notice. The old one is on the right, the new one is on the left. And if I grab these two, kind of match them up here at the heads, and then keep them going so you can see the difference in length. You can see here, the old one probably has a good, I'd say 6 inches or more on it. So that's just too long for the 12-inch apes. Like I said, I think you could probably have gotten away with putting 18-inch apes on this bike with this cable, but ultimately too long and it looks like crap. So out with the old, in with the new. All right, weaving the new one is not a big deal. It's pretty straightforward. So right behind this, it's hollow, right? I mean, it's empty. So you're just gonna find its way through, and you may have to guide it a little bit with your hand or your finger, or maybe you just get your finger out of the way and it'll guide itself. However you want to figure it out or find out. And yeah, so now we just gotta hook it up there and hook it up at the bottom, and then we do the bleeding process. And I'm not gonna tell you how to bleed your brakes. That's probably something better for another video. And that's a whole nother process, right? Like as far as trying to do it if you're alone, sometimes that's a pain. It's always easier if you're with somebody to help you kind of keep the pressure on the brake. But so we're just gonna go ahead and push that bolt through. Go ahead and get this thing on here. And just like that. I'll put a little forward angle on it just so make sure we got right amount of space and flexibility. I'm not sure what the torque value is on this, so I'm gonna have to look that up, but I'm just gonna make it taut, right? Just throw a little bit of pressure on it to keep it held in place until I can find out the right value and make sure that that's tightened appropriately. The big thing is you don't want to see it leak, and it doesn't want to lose pressure, so that way you don't lose your brakes. All right, let's go ahead and go downtown. All right, so like I said, all I did is I just weaved it through the backside of that. So we'll come down and mount it to the caliper, right? So you got this 90-degree bend, so you want to make sure you get that position just right. You may have to adjust here and there, but you know, just you'll figure it out, right? And if you're replacing a stock one, take a look at the position, because that'll tell you where it needs to be. So use that as a kind of a cheat, right? So let's go ahead and let me get this thing, the bolt through it, and tighten it down. Now, one of the things I did want to point out that was different from above, let me put this camera down, is the bolts. So the bolt up there was kind of your standard, what is it, like 8-point or whatever number of points. Well, this is not, right? So this is one of those like 12-point deals. So you need to make sure you have the appropriate wrench for these, because if you don't, then you're making a trip to Harbor Freight or wherever you buy your tools from, right? So let's go ahead and, again, pretty simple. We'll get this thing put through there, right? Put your washer on, and then you tighten her up. So once I'm done tightening this up, then what I can do is I can go ahead and run this along with the speedometer cable or whatever you want to zip tie it to. You want to make sure that you check your like flexibility or whatever, I don't know, your movement. So move your handlebars from left to right to ensure that you're not going to get hung up, right? Like you didn't, you know, zip tie it too close or whatever, where you're going to stretch your cable. So you don't want that as a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and just tighten this up. I'm going to look up the torque values, torque them down. It's probably going to be inch-pounds is my guess, since they're so small. So make sure you have the appropriate stuff. I'll tell you this, 99% of the time, I think most people just tighten them down, hand tight, making sure they don't leak. And if they do leak, then they tighten them a little bit more, right? This is, you know, your preference. So the proper way to do it, though, is with the torque value. So you can look that up online. So let me go ahead and get these tightened down, and then I'll bring it back as soon as I'm done bleeding things through. All right, guys, so here's the finished brake line, at least for now. And so what I did is I ran it straight down. I changed my mind. I was going through this center because that's how it was, and it's been like that since I got the bike. But what I'd like to do is get the chrome cable management deals to help kind of keep this where that is. It'll look cleaner, I think. It keeps this from being as jam-packed as it is already. When I do the throttle cables, I'm going to take those out of there and just kind of run them kind of similar, where they're going to be along the bar. And then same thing with my clutch cable. Can you believe this is supposed to be stainless steel, right? Like, that's crazy. So anyhow, future videos. But for now, we got the brake line in there. We've got it bled. Like I said, pretty simple. And looks a ton better. It doesn't have the discoloration that the old one did. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you enjoy my content, become a subscriber. We're on a journey to 1,000 subscribers, and I really look forward to you being a part of our community and appreciate your support. And if you don't want to miss out on that next video, hit the notification bell and you'll get that ding ding and my video will be in your feed. So until then, I hope to see you on the next, and I hope to see you in the wind.